1 million years ago, the world did not belong to the gentle. It belonged to those who could endure hunger without crying, pain without screaming, and fear without running. The land was vast and unforgiving, a place where the horizon never promised safety, and the ground itself seemed to test every step taken upon it. The air carried the scent of dust, blood, and rain long before the rain ever came. Survival was not learned, it was carved into bone. She had learned this early. Bare feet pressed into cold earth as dawn crept slowly across the plains. The light revealed scars on her arms and dirt beneath her nails, signs of a life lived close to death. Her clothing, stitched from animal hide, hung heavy on her small frame, worn thin by years of use. She moved quietly, not because she was afraid, but because the land demanded respect. Every sound mattered. Every shadow could be the last thing she ever saw. She was alone, but not weak. The low rumble reached her before she saw it, vibrating through the soil like a warning whispered by the earth itself. Birds lifted suddenly from distant trees. Her body froze, muscles tight, breath shallow. She followed the sound cautiously, heart pounding, not with fear, but with instinct sharpened by survival. That was when she saw it. The elephant lay near the riverbank, its massive body half sunken into mud darkened by blood. Its breathing was slow, labored, each rise of its chest a battle against the end. A broken spear protruded from its side, driven deep by hands that knew only how to take, not how to give. The ground around it was torn apart, evidence of struggle, of pain, of a fight the animal had nearly lost. She should have run. Everything she had ever learned told her to turn away. The elephant was dying, dangerous, powerful even in weakness, and predators, human and otherwise, would not be far behind. But she did not move. Instead, she stepped closer. Her hands trembled as she approached, not from fear of the animal, but from the weight of the decision pressing against her chest. She had seen death before. She had caused it. She had fled from it. But this was different. The elephant's eye was open, dark and glossy, reflecting not rage but exhaustion. Pain recognized pain, and something ancient passed between them in that moment, an understanding older than words. She reached for the spear. The moment she pulled, the elephant cried out, a sound so deep and raw it seemed to split the sky. Dust erupted, birds scattered again. She stumbled back, nearly falling, heart racing, but she did not drop the weapon. With one final effort, she dragged the spear free, blood spilling hot and heavy onto the earth. The elephant collapsed, its body shuddering. She waited. When it did not strike, did not move, she stepped forward again, tearing strips from her clothing to press against the wound. Blood soaked through instantly. Her hands were slick, her arms burning with effort. She worked until her strength faltered, until exhaustion forced her to sit back on her heels beside the giant creature. The shadows grew longer. From the edge of the trees, movement flickered, too deliberate to be animals. She felt eyes on her back, felt the presence of others who had watched her choice and judged it foolish. Firelight glimmered faintly between trunks. She knew they would return. Those who had hunted the elephant would not abandon their prize easily. She stayed anyway. Night fell slowly, heavy with cold and uncertainty. Rain began to fall, thin at first, then relentless, washing blood into the river and turning the ground beneath her into thick mud. She leaned against the elephant's side, sharing warmth, listening to its breath through the darkness. She slept in fragments, waking at every sound, every crack of branch or distant call. By morning, the rain had passed. Light revealed the elephant still alive. It struggled, groaning, legs trembling as it attempted to rise. She stepped back, heart in her throat, ready to run if she had misjudged everything. But instead of attacking, the elephant stood slowly, unsteadily, towering above her like a living mountain scarred by survival. They looked at each other. There was no roar, no threat, just silence. Then, without ceremony, the elephant turned away and limped away, disappearing into the mist beyond the river. She watched until it was gone, until only broken ground and fading footprints remained. She collapsed where she stood, laughter and tears breaking free at once. Time moved on, as it always does. Seasons changed, scars healed, the land remained cruel. She grew stronger, older, wiser. The memory of the elephant faded into something almost unreal, a story she carried quietly, unsure whether it truly happened or if exhaustion had woven it into her dreams. But the world had not forgotten. One evening, as the sun bled red into the horizon, the drums began. They echoed across the plains, deep and rhythmic, a sound that turned her blood cold. She knew what it meant. She ran. Branches tore at her skin as she pushed through the forest. Spears flew past her, striking trees, burying themselves inches from her head. Voices shouted behind her, fueled by hunger and cruelty sharpened into ritual. She stumbled, fell, rolled down a slope slick with mud, pain exploding through her side. She crawled. Hands reached for her, shadows closed in. The end felt inevitable. Then the ground shook, not with the sound of running men, but with something heavier, slower, relentless. The hunters froze. Trees began to sway violently, snapping under unseen force. A low, thunderous sound rolled through the forest, not a roar, but a warning. From the darkness emerged a shape so massive it stole the breath from every living thing that witnessed it. The elephant. Older now, scarred, powerful. It charged. The earth cracked beneath its feet. Men scattered, screaming, dropping weapons as fear overpowered hunger. One torch fell, extinguished in mud. Another man was sent flying through the air as if he weighed nothing at all. The elephant placed itself between her and the danger, its massive body forming an unbreakable wall. She stared up at it, disbelief flooding her chest. It stood firm, unyielding, until the forest fell silent once more. When the last hunter had vanished into the trees, the elephant turned its head slowly towards her. Their eyes met again, as they had before. Recognition passed between them, not memory, not thought, but something deeper. She reached for her hand against its leg, feeling warmth and strength beneath thick skin. The elephant lowered its head slightly, then turned away, disappearing into the forest just as it had years before. She stood alone, breathing hard, changed forever. The world returned to its endless cycle of hunger and survival, but something had shifted. A line had been crossed, a debt had been paid. 1,000,000 years ago, kindness had survived, and the earth remembered. In the end, the world returned to silence, not the quiet of safety, but the quiet that follows survival, the kind of silence earned through blood, breath, and choices that could never be undone. The forest stood still again, as if it had been watching all along, waiting to see which side of humanity would remain standing. She did not chase the elephant as it disappeared into the trees. She did not call after it. Some bonds do not need words. They exist beyond sound, beyond memory, beyond time itself. She stood where she was, mud drying on her skin, chest rising and falling, as the weight of what had happened slowly settled into her bones. Her hands trembled, not from fear anymore, but from the realization that the world she believed in had changed forever. For most of her life, survival had been simple: eat or starve, run or die, kill or be killed. Compassion was a luxury the prehistoric world did not offer. Every lesson she had learned was written in scars and loss. Yet one moment, one decision made beside a dying creature had rewritten those rules, not because the world had softened, but because it had answered. The elephant had not returned out of instinct, it had returned out of memory. In a time when humans believed themselves to be the only creatures capable of remembering kindness, nature had proven them wrong. The land did not see her weak for helping the fallen. It saw her as something rarer, someone who understood balance. The tribes would tell stories about that night. They would speak of a shadow that moved like a mountain, of thunder that walked on four legs, of a woman who should have died but didn't. Over time, fear would distort the truth, turning it into myth, but the forest would remember the real version. The earth always does. She turned away from the path the elephant had taken and began to walk. There was still a life to live, still hunger to face, still dangers that would come with the next sunrise. Survival had not ended, it had simply evolved. She carried no trophy, no proof of what had happened, yet the strength in her step told its own story. She was no longer just a survivor of the wild, she was part of it. Far beyond human understanding, something ancient had shifted. A line once drawn between species had blurred. The world was reminded that dominance is not the same as power, and that mercy can echo louder than violence. In the vastness of time, most lives pass unnoticed, erased by wind